Going to take a look at Retool tonight. According to CodeStore's article and presentation that they gave at the No Code Summit last month or earlier this month, Retool they predict is going to be in a position to really corner the enterprise no code market. So like large businesses using this tool to build and scale apps for internal purposes. So the internal market. Now, I think that a lot of us, like myself, we tend to gravitate towards one tool, and that's like our base. And you may branch out a little bit into the automation tools like Make or Zapier. And maybe you have a back end tool that you prefer, but I think for the large part, we tend to go all in on one tool and know that the best, put our effort, because it's a lot of effort to learn these tools, into learning and experience into that one tool, and like kind of that's our specialty. But I've been interested in, I don't know about completely. Of course, I'll never leave Bubble. Bubble is my go-to, and I'll never, I'll never give it up. I've just put so much energy into it, and I just think it's the best tool at the moment. But I am interested to learn and see what else is out there and what the other, if Bubble is going to be the small and mid-sized business go to, who's going to be the enterprise ones that all of the larger corporations adopt. I at least want to have an understanding of who's going to be in that space and what their platform is like to use. So this is where this is how I found out about it, just to give you the context. The prediction for Retool, our absolute favorite and game changer in the business application industry. It's front end only, right? So this does not have a back end. So you need to connect to a back end with this tool. Front end only, low code tool to visually build internal apps and connect them to different backends, SQL databases, NoSQL databases, REST, GraphQL, APIs, etc. So already this is kind of positioned for enterprise because they're enabling you to easily connect with traditional SQL databases, and like that larger companies probably already are using. So they're making it easy for that group to adopt a tool like this. To create an app, you simply need to put your ready-to-use components from the library over 90 and connect them to queries. At any moment, you can write plain JavaScript to enhance and modify the behavior of each component or alter query results. So what we're going to do, like, and just for this is how I found, again, this is their prediction. Code Store, which is an agency from France, I believe, their prediction is that this tool is going to really be useful for larger companies in the future, and I want to get my hands on it. I want to see what it's about. Couple just facts on it. It's founded in 2017, so it's one of the newer ones. 51 to 200 employees, so a decent sized company, and they've raised 140 million total according to Crunchbase. So they've got good funding. They've got a pretty sizable team. And we're going to take a look at the quick start tonight. So they have a quick start guide that claims you can build your first Retool app in minutes. So let's see what this is about. All right, so Retool lets you quickly build internal tools with rich GUIs around any sort of database or API. I think they also let you use like even Google Sheets or Excel. And so you really, if you're coming in with the data source, it's probably going to be easier. I've worked with tools like that, like AppSheet, for example, where if you have a pre-existing data source, it's really easy to get started, and you kind of just like upload the spreadsheet to a platform, and then they just create like the app for you pretty much, and then you can make modifications, of course, but it starts from that data source. It sounds like getting the initial sense that this is going to be something similar. This guide walks you to building and user management application like the one below. You can also create a copy of this app by downloading its JSON file and importing it using the from JSON option. So you can export it through JSON. I don't know how that's useful. Bubble claims you can do that too. So really, I mean, obviously, I'm going to come in with I'm trying to be as objective as possible when I'm looking at this and going through what the different functionality is and user interface, but I'm certainly biased. I'm going to look at this through the lenses of the tools that I already know. Admittedly, there's no way around that. I have to, I have to have some basis for comparison, but I'm going to try to be as fair and, objective as possible in terms of ease of use, how I feel, how customizable I think this app is, and, what I really use it, and under what circumstances would I use this platform over Bubble, right? That's kind of like what I'm curious to know. All right, try out the demo to see Retool app in action. Buttons are disabled. I think we're going to skip that part. All right, get user data. Remember to save changes to your queries by clicking save. Okay, log into Retool, then click create new app. If you don't have an account yet, sign up for free. So I'm going to go, I'm already kind of here. I've already signed up. But I think I can I create a new app? Let's see. I guess I could just edit this. This is an existing app, kind of like an onboarding thing. Okay, so first, you're hit with which data source you want to connect to. I mean, these are, I'm surprised that like Xano and Backendless are not here, considering this is a no-code tool. And these look like the APIs that you can automatically integrate with. So they've probably done a lot of that API like configuration for the APIs and stuff, which is cool. I just don't have any data sources coming from any of these databases. So I guess I'll just resources that you connect to your database or API. Once you connect a resource, you can use it in all your apps. Okay, so I'm not ready to connect to my data. No problem. Try using Retool demo data. So I'll start here. Learn Retool in 5 minutes. So should we go through this tutorial? Should we go through the 5-minute learning process here? I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more complicated than that. Let's see what this quick start says. Create new app. We did this. Retool can interact with almost any API or database and includes native integrations from many different data sources. Once you've configured a resource, you can start building apps using your data. All right, so the resource that we've connected to here is the onboarding DB, which I assume is a Postgres database. Yep, Postgres SQL. Queries allow your app to read and write data. Retool adds a sample query to your app, query 1, for you to get started. Select the queries and change the resource for this query to onboarding DB. This is a sample Postgres SQL database that we provide for you to test with. In the query editor, type select asterisk from new users and then save and run the query. Okay, so I think that part would go here, right? Select. Now, what are we querying? I don't really understand what query we're running. We're running a query on this database. We're setting up a query. Select star from users. Save and run. Okay, so our query was ran successfully. And I guess it's pulling in all of the, okay, so query is like we're querying the onboarding DB. And I assume that the query that we ran with the asterisk, that is just giving us all of the information that's in the database. And that's what it seems like here. Bennett Retool. This is kind of hard to see though. Event handlers. Okay. So I guess you can just kind of expand it. This is kind of nice, actually. This is pretty nice that you can just expand this up. That's a nice user experience. All right, so this is our data. All right, we've got 12 records in this database. I assume that this is the only page, the only page here in our database. Okay, let's see what else we got. And save and run the query. Display data in a table. You assemble apps using components, right? So part of the thing with these tools is like learning all of the terminology, and it does take some time. Every no-code platform has different terminology for the same things, and it's kind of frustrating to learn. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because developers have already named these things, so I kind of wonder like why we can't just model like why can't we model things off of the traditional development terminology and jargon? Like, does it make sense that every platform needs to have a different thing, if like for a workflow or a scenario or an action? Like, it just creates such inconsistency and incompatibility in people's learning ability to pick up tools cross-functionally, right? So like there's these fundamentals that you learn that you hope apply to other platforms, but having to learn new jargon for every platform it's just time consuming, and I think it makes people not want to, less likely to move over. So we've got to get some consistency in what we call these things. I assume a component would be the bubble equivalent of like an element, I hope. More than 80 components are available in the Create tab of the right panel of the app editor. Okay, we've got app editor. That's consistent. Bubble close there is an editor too. To start, drag a table component onto the canvas. Okay, so we're going to go back here. I'm going to hit skip tutorial. I'm nervous to do that, but let's skip this. I'm just going to go by you'll be able to restart this tutorial at any time by clicking the help icon at the bottom right corner of the editor and selecting the take editor tutorial. Okay, so I still have access to this. Awesome. All right, so this looks like our components library. So this is what they say. There's 90 of these things. We've got table, we've got text, button, inputs, number inputs, very much like the bubble editor. Button group, select inputs, date and time inputs. There's a lot of different types of inputs. JSON Explorer, circular image, presentation, containers and forms, collapsible container. This is kind of cool. There's a lot of components here. And you can also add, look, you can add a custom component. Probably like just by dragging this, you could probably drop some HTML and CSS in there and build your own stuff. So it seems like there's a lot going on here. To start drag. Okay, so we're gonna drag a table on. So this is a table. I imagine that this is the bubble equivalent of a repeating group, if I'm to be so bold as to make that comparison. Let's bring this down a little bit. And can we move this table now? We can. Okay. Add search to the app. You can add a search box to quickly filter the results of the table, making it easier to find what you're looking for. Drag a text input component onto the canvas and change its label to search users. Okay, so we need a text component. Let's go back here. Wait, no, text input component. Text input component. We need a text input component. And where do I put that? Do I put it on top? I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's put that up here. Text. The editor feels a little bit clunky, but I assume you can probably adjust these little boxes in like the grids and just make them a little bit like smaller or larger. You can probably do that. I'm not going to try to figure out how to do that, but it seems like you can adjust that. And change its label to search users. So the label search users. Then update query 1 with the code below. Then save and run the query again. Select, oh my God, this reminds me of AppSheet. It really does. Select star from users where first name I like. Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, this would be, let's say, search users. Enter. I don't know that I've selected the right input here. Oh, we've got all of these options on the side here. Label is going to be, okay, this is where search users should be. Search users. Trying to do it directly in the editor here, but this editable text. Move this up here. Okay, I see. I'm probably going to have to change this value. So let's add this, then update query 1 with the code below. Update query 1. So we're going to have to go here. I think we have to just put this in here. Text input 1 is not defined. Try using the shortcut. Space to show an autocomplete menu. Michael Hearn, what's up, man? So when you have to start writing SQL queries, how no code is the tool? Not saying it's good or bad, just wondering. Yeah, I'm wondering the same thing, Michael. It's a good point. It's like this definitely feels like a low code tool. Is this a proper SQL query? I'm not sure. This looks very much like what AppSheet used to do. They used to use like the select and asterisk and stuff, but I'm not familiar enough with SQL to know if this is like the way you would write a SQL query. But this definitely does feel a little bit more like a low code tool than no code. All right, so I definitely messed this up by changing this. I need to change this back to, or I need to just put in, maybe if I replace this with text input 1. There we go. SQL prepared state. Yeah, you're right, Michael. It is. It is SQL. SQL prepared statement, and we're in SQL mode. Construct write queries with a GUI easier and less error prone than writing in raw SQL. So I guess we're writing in raw SQL right now. Now I can see why like people who know how to code would use this. Like this is probably pretty easy to work with if you're familiar with SQL queries. And the fact that you have like so much customizability and components to it, but there's definitely going to be a learning curve here. Yeah, I'm with you. Drop your questions. Drop your questions in the chat if you have any. It can be related to Retool or whatever. Just drop whatever questions you have. Throw them into the chat. I'll be responding to that. Add search onto the app. All right, so this uses the same base query but adds some filtering based on the text in the search bar and can support wildcards. When you type something in the search bar, the table updates automatically. All right, so let's test that now. So if we type something in here, the idea is that it's going to filter out this table. And or maybe we have to preview it. You didn't save your query. Are you sure you want to discard the changes? No, I don't want to do that. Save and run. Okay, yes, that does. So Ben. So this is the equivalent of a search box in Bubble, right? Eva. Okay. At least we get this to work. What happens when we preview this? So I guess this is what the user would see. All right. All right, let's go back to edit app here. Previewing system is kind of similar to Bubble also, right? You can kind of go into preview mode and then go back, toggle back and forth between preview and edit mode. This uses, where was I? User update user data. The user management app commonly have functionality to control user access. For this example, the app will have buttons to activate or deactivate a selected user. Each button is configured with an event handler. Here we go with more terminology. Event handler to trigger a query when clicked. So I guess an event handler is like an event in Bubble, right? Like an event that would trigger a series of workflows. Add 2 button components to the app. For each button, update its text. Oh, wait. Add 2 button components to the app. Okay. For each button, update its text to activate user and deactivate user. You can optionally change their styles and colors. All right, so let's add 2 buttons here. Let's add this. And we'll change the text to activate. And we'll change this. Create text. And we'll change this to deactivate. You can optionally change the colors and style. How do we change the color and style of these buttons? Okay, we got it right here. Style. We can do outline. Contrast. Solid primary. Probably make this red, and we'll make this one success. Styling, changing the style seems pretty easy. It's pretty similar. I don't see like the options for changing the text style, though. I don't know if that's just in another spot or, is that like, do you have to write custom code in order to change that stuff? I don't know. I see some toggles here for show on desktop, show on mobile. I'm not sure how to do that. Let's stick to the script here. I don't want to veer off too much. I want to just deal with what's in this quick start here. Okay. With the buttons added, you can now make them functional. All right, so this is the equivalent of like start or edit workflow, right? Like this is the part where we're going to make these buttons do something. I have to compare to Bubble again, only because it's my only reference for comparison. Click plus add new to event handlers. Okay, so let's go back. It's here. I'm supposed to be looking for a plus. Where am I supposed to see this plus? Click plus add next to event handlers. Edit click handler. So we're looking for this menu here. Interaction, click query one trigger. Event handlers here. Okay, got it. Click plus add next to event handlers. Click the query field and select create a new query. The query field and then create a new query. This creates a query named button one clicker. Follow these steps to update the query. Change the resource to onboarding API. Okay, the resource is a trigger. Where am I seeing the resource here? I don't see a resource. Oh, maybe down here. I'm changing it to onboarding API. Yeah, onboarding API. And change the action type to put and add this slug into the URL. Button one click handler. Yes. Okay, so I got to move this up. Now, I would have no idea how to do this if there wasn't these clear instructions. So this begs the question, like as I'm going through this, I'm asking like, how long would this take me to figure out on my own? A fucking long time is what I'm guessing. I don't know if this is the like this is probably not something that people would start with if they're just getting into app development. This seems like there would be a ton of learning here. And I am intimidated by the prospect of having to learn this. I would hope that they have like really strong documentation and like nothing's terribly obvious. I think the the side panel here with all the components, that's familiar, I would say. I don't know about obvious, but it's familiar at least because of Bubble, but this would be learning an entirely new skill. All right, I'm going to copy this and we're going to change this to put. And I'm going to drop this into here. All right, so this is essentially the workflow. I do like the fact that I'm looking at both the design tab and the workflow tab. I know I'm not using the right terms, but I like the fact that I can see these things at the same time. That's pretty cool, right? I'm looking at the activate button here on my page, and I also have the what that button does down here. And I'm not even sure why we're working with an API at this point. Aren't we just running data on our own in our own database? Why do we need an API for that? This directs the API URL path to the selected user in the table. Add a key value pair to the JSON body that says active to true. All right, so we're going to add the JSON body here. So we'll add a key value pair. This will be active. And the value here will be true. True. Okay. Under event handler in the query editor, click. Is this the same one? Plus add next to success and set the query to query 1. This updates the table after you activate a user. Okay, so I think there's two actions here. Right, so this is onboarding API. The action is the put. So it's a put because we're changing an existing value. Yeah, this is all pretty intimidating here. All right, so event handlers. I think this is what they were telling us to do. In the query editor, click plus add next to success. And set the query to query 1. Add query 1 onboarding DB. Okay, so that should be the event handler that updates our table or the record in our table. Is that it? Anything else? This updates the table after you activate a user. Save the query. Save. All right, so let's run that now, right? Run. All right, I'm not sure what that did. Did any of them get activated? Or did we not select anyone? Maybe we didn't select. We need to select a row. Let's preview this. And let me select. I don't know if this is like selected if I just click on it. Seems like an editable field. Activate. It did something. But I can't really tell what. Onboarding API. Activate. Now, shouldn't I be seeing the work that I just did here in this query? Am I not looking in the right place now? This is it's a little bit confusing. Repeat these steps for the deactivate buttons, but set true equal to false and the key value pair. Let's try that again. Maybe let me try that. Let me try that whole thing again. So if I go to onboarding API. All right. Oh no, this is query 1. Wait. Cancel. Save and run. Okay, here's my put. All right, it ran an API request. And all my rows are now gone. I feel like I'm not smart enough for this. This is going to take some time to learn. All right. I've what appears to be wiped my database. I don't know how I did that, but I thought I was activating things. I wiped my database. Let's see what else we got here. We got view order data and the wrap up. There's only one more section here. The table contains a lot of information, but it'd be nice to also display order information. You can configure the app so that as you click on rows on the table, order the data for that the user is displayed. Create a new resource query named query for in this example. Make sure the resource is set to onboarding DB. Add the following code to the query editor, and then run and save the query. All right, let's try this. Let's see if we can order this. I don't have, it doesn't seem like I have any data now, though. That's the problem. Am I not? Oh, well, I don't have any data because I'm not on my onboarding DB database, right? Huh? No? No rows found. Maybe I messed up and deleted the database, or deleted the records that were in that database, like with that query that I wrote. It's possible. All right, so I really can't do this unless I can't order this because there's no data in there. All right, but I think that in general, just speaking very broadly, I can understand what's happening here. You have the left panel here, and that is basically your place to create components, drag things onto the the canvas here. It does seem like you can create some pretty custom. I don't know how, like, I don't know that like a non-technical person would be able to create very beautiful apps out of this. It seems like you would need to know HTML. The core components here of, like, what's on a button, for example, right? If we just inspect and then we check out all the options that they give us here, it's pretty limited. But I'm pretty sure that you can also just add custom code to this and make it really pretty. But again, you would have to know how to do that. So the question becomes, is this really for non-technical people? It doesn't seem like it. The fact that in order to run any action now, right? So what we put onto these, the work, I'm trying to use the right terms. The queries that we've assigned to these buttons will do things, but you're using SQL queries in order to run basic CRUD operations, at what it seems like. And also, they're like API calls for actually changing the data. I think this, it uses SQL queries for the for this, if we're looking up data for searching, but for any deleting or putting or changing, like what we're trying to do with the active and inactive, it seems like you need an API call for that. So would I mean, if I was, I'd have to have a very compelling reason to need to use this tool. And I think Bubble takes care of most of what I need. I don't think this is like, I wouldn't choose this over Bubble. Obviously I'm biased because that's the tool, my go-to tool. But I'm just wondering, what's the advantage for me as somebody who can't code to learning this tool? That would be my question, right? And the answer may just be, it's just not for me, and it's not meant for me, and that's fine. But if we're going to really consider this a no-code tool that's going to take over the small or the larger enterprise, in the larger enterprise app space, if it's meant to really be a dominant player there, they're going to the people that use this are going to be developers, or at least have an understanding of coding and backend queries. And so it's questionable to me whether this is even really a no-code tool. They say that on their LinkedIn pages, they call it a no-code tool. So that's why I'm a little surprised at what I found. It would probably take me, I want to say 50 to 60 hours to even get comfortable with this tool, right? Putting in 50 to 60 like development hours to really get a feel for how to navigate it and how to work those queries. I've worked with tools like this before, and they're not the, it's a high effort. And at this point, like I say, I just don't see the benefit of putting that time investment in. At least not yet. Not at this point. It doesn't mean that it won't be there in the future. Um, but let me just go back to the. Do they consider themselves a no code tool? I think they do. I think they do. Build custom internal tools fast. So they're definitely focusing on internal and no code development platforms. Yes, so they do consider themselves a no tool. Retool is the fastest way to build internal tools. Drag and drop our building blocks and connect them to your databases and APIs. Oh, well, I can answer my own question here. The reason we're using APIs is because it's not an internal database. I forgot that. Right? It's always connecting to an external database. So you're going to have to use APIs to query to run any CRUD operations. So that does make sense. To build your own tools instantly connects with Postgres, REST, APIs, GraphSQL, Google Sheets, and more. Built by developers for developers. Yeah, so they kind of call that out here. I'm just curious as to who is the ideal user for Retool? What skill or what understanding and what background should you have if you're going to be proficient in Retool, and or unless it's just expected that you're learning this from the ground up. That would be kind of my question here. But definitely seems scalable, right? If you can connect to any data source, which I think is pretty awesome, and it seems like the front end is pretty customizable, and I'd like to see what other I guess the you're not limited by any here's what I think where it will be very successful is that you're not limited by any like in Bubble like you the way that you would set up a backend workflow or an API workflow or a loop. You're not compelled to do it the way that Bubble wants you to because you can write a SQL query to do that. So that can be extremely flexible and probably faster. But again, it's more about learning these tools. Learning, if you want to put that learning in. Some of these tools really look like they are meant for more internal type applications rather than more robust consumer facing applications. Yeah, it does. Um, yeah, I get that feeling too. I get the feeling of like, uh, like how would this differ if you're using an internal tool? You're looking for Microsoft Power Apps or Amazon Honeycode. It kind of feels like that the way that I've tried those tools out, I got the same kind of feeling from it. And maybe this seems a little bit more broad than that because Power Apps definitely was specific to the use case of like a company that's using like the Microsoft suite is already ingrained in the entire company. And that makes sense, right? Like it would make sense for a company like that to use Power Apps. But this seems more broad than that, right? Retool seems like it doesn't matter what your existing stack is. As long as you've got a database that you can connect to, you can build whatever front end you want on top of that and run queries all day to do what you want. Yeah, it does. I mean, it meets it. I've never really come across a use case where Bubble wouldn't particularly work. But I also think that you learn that, oh, maybe I should have explored a different tool kind of far into the journey when you've already committed to a specific tool. Like sometimes you don't know up front if this use case should I go to Retool or Bubble or AppSheet or a dollar? Could I have done it on a dollar or Glide and done it in half the time? You kind of like the problem is once you make the decision, you're kind of stuck with that decision because you're really going to go back and then try and rebuild what you did when you put so many hours into something. It just seems so, it seems like you'd probably just try to figure it out with the tool that you've chosen because what's going to take longer, what's going to take longer to do to rebuild it on a platform that may have been better for your use case, or are you going to You're just gonna try to chug along. I think they made a good point in the that article by Code Store where they said that there's a consolidation happening of the no code tools. A lot of them are doing the same things. So in the future, they're going to be consolidated into four like major players. So that's interesting to see, and that's kind of why I'm interested in learning a little bit about the other options that are out there, and just seeing like I can't imagine Bubble is going anywhere because as Michael you point out, it just meets it's so useful. There's just so many different use cases for it. I have to think it covers like 80% of use cases that you can possibly think of. So a tool that's that versatile is not going to go anywhere. Um, but there for enterprise internal tools, I can see why they would choose something. And for a company that has a dedicated internal development team, and they can just introduce this tool that makes things a little bit faster, I could see why they would go with something like Retool. You know, I could see why they would do that. They have the talent, or they have the in-house knowledge already, to scale up a tool like that really quickly without, if maybe a backend developer could even develop on Retool, not really having a good understanding of HTML and CSS, but they can still build it because not 80% of what they need, is in the backend, right? And they can just throw together a quick front end user interface and then call it a day. Web apps, Bubble, native mobile apps, Flutterflow. I haven't used Flutterflow yet. And do you use that? Because I'd be interested to take a look from somebody that actually knows how to use these tools. And like if I'd like to, because it's fun to try them, but I don't really know what I'm missing because I might be looking in all the wrong areas for things. So I've been Flutterflow has kind of been another one that I'm curious about, and would love to get somebody who's used it before's take on it, and just kind of like a quick intro on how to use it and when to use it. So those are I think I'm gonna jump off now. Those are my thoughts on Retool. I want to keep we'll have another tool or something to review probably this week. Uh, Michael, if you ever want to jump on and take a look at Flutterflow with me, I'd be happy to do that. And yeah, I'll come up either with another topic or we'll check in tomorrow and take a look at what's going on in the no code space. And yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow.